It's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I'm bringing you guys who are in government contracting a real treat. I have Jon Cochran Jr. Yes, Johnny Cochran Jr. And he's here to tell us about how he's going to make government contracting that much easier in 2020 and beyond. Johnny, what's up, man?
What's going on?
All is good, all is good. Man, when I heard about it was like 2 weeks ago when I heard, and we were here at the Columbia Tower Club,
right?
And I heard what you're doing. I mean, my ears perked up because one, I've never seen anybody like you do it. Two, government contracting is hard and meticulous. You almost need someone full time to go find the grants, the RFPs.
Right.
Grants, the RFQs, then write them in a certain time, and usually have 2 weeks.
Yep.
So, can you tell people out there what your company is doing and who you are?
Name is Jon Cochran. I'm not related to Johnny the lawyer Cochran, but we have a data science company, and what we do is we, as you said, we use AI to help win government contracts. Businesses win government contracts, and we do so in a couple of fun ways. We aggregate contracts into one site. We kind of clean the contracts out. And then we classify contracts, and then after that, that's where we start doing our query. So basically, we ingest a bunch of information from all the agencies, that's RFQs, all and past contracts that have existed. We collect user information, and then that's when we start doing the data science stuff. So basically, what we want to do is compare qualifications to requirements using, in essence, natural language processing and a lot of machine learning. So that's kind of what we do.
Okay.
And in doing so, we can save vendors or folks that are seeking government contracts about 90%, up to 90% with their search and up into the actual application process. And we can get them probably a higher percentage of wins based off of sending them down the path of contracts that they are more likely to win. So that's what we do.
Okay, and to go to his website, all that stuff will be in the description box, and you can, contact and see, because anything to help save time in government contracting is a blessing. You and I were briefly talking on the email, because he has a beautiful pitch deck for all investors out there who want to get on this early. This is your time to get on and bring your hundreds of millions of dollars to Johnny, because we know, the angels and the venture capital and something like this is needed. But usually when you have a company like this, and I get the calls, it's like almost, it used to be weekly, and then you keep telling enough people no. But they start off with at least, in this service, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, and it's going to be $15,000.
Right.
And as someone new in government contracting, or if someone's been doing it but you haven't hit that big lick where you're like, it makes sense to spend $15,000 or more, the pricing, how are you going to do the pricing? I know you were asking me, and I was like, well, is it free 99? It's not just to collect the data, and you can have even the blood,
So we are, we've got to implement the system, and then we're going to do a bunch of different type of pricing strategies. Our goal is to get the pricing for our service to it's a subscription-based service. By the way, the name of the company is Carously, CAERUSLY.com. We are attempting to discover pricing. There are vendors that pay large sums of money for what the service might be, specifically on the government end. We are going to try to keep our service down to maybe $200 a month, but that's a notional number. We don't know yet until we get some discovery from our clients to see how they're using our service. So a lot of this stuff is basically data science from the perspective of the user too. So we don't necessarily know what our pricing is. Our first couple of customers we're going to build white label solutions for. Those are going to be larger, checks coming in, but it's going to be a custom solution. For our software as a service, our cost is going to be relatively low, and we don't necessarily know how we're going to price it yet. But notionally, we're at $200.
Could it be in the pricing, and this is such kind of like a shark, maybe sleazy way of doing things, but it's what just comes to my mind, so I'm going to share it. Saying, okay, our product is so good, we just want a percentage of your contract. And that's hard to do because we know the government can, as easily as they can award it, they can take it back, and you're like, wait, hold on, we're all going to get paid, and oops, no, we're not.
So some of the, by the way, so multiple different pricing strategies includes a subscription-based service. One is a a la carte service. One, as you mentioned, is as a percentage of contracts awarded. These are all strategies that we're going to try to figure out which one's the best for us, which brings the best value for the customer and our company at the same time. I will address the percentage of contract awards. Once we figure out a way to tie an RFP to an award, then we will consider doing that. It's hard, but that's some of the data science that we're kind of working on, how to tie old contracts to RFPs, RFQs, and then those RFQs to an actual award, and then of course trying to get payment from them. So those need to be tied together. Once they're tied together, then we can kind of think or consider doing some of the other pricing strategies, as you mentioned, percentage of award.
And if you don't want to give a percentage of the award, then you can just pay a higher fee, is what I'm thinking, because you do have those people who they love you until they win, and then they, you can't find them. They're blowing in the wind. They're on the boat. They're this. They're that. Whatever. But what do you think? Is this something that the government is going to be happy about? Because to me, the government, they send something out at noon. By 12:01, there's an amendment already. Now I got to go read their amendment, and I said, "How did you make an amendment that quick?" And so sometimes I think they like this long system, and because it allows the key players that they've been using for the last 2 decades to stay, because they can say, "Oh, and just an amendment? Okay, we have someone full time to write that. That's not a problem." Plus, they may have knew about it beforehand. That's something totally different that the government, we can never prove that
There are lots of different things that I have seen from a government agency. So governments or local agencies like the process or like what we're doing, because the one thing that they are trying to guard against is lawsuits. Right now, there's not enough WIMBY businesses or women, minority, veteran-owned businesses within the multiple government agencies across the state of Washington at the very minimum, and they're looking for ways to improve those numbers. Our service, as designed, can help WIMBY firms or smaller businesses target opportunities that they have the best chance of winning. Governments see this and would love to pile in. So we've gotten some support. We need a little bit more support. We want to make their data collection efforts better. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to get APIs to come in. Addressing your concern about like say amendments coming in, a lot of it is if a government agency speaks to a specific vendor and tells them a specific a set of information, and that's passed along to one group, they have to do so for all groups or they might get sued. So a lot of times what you'll see is amendments happening because they've either found out better information or some other thing, which means that they need to issue an amendment, or more specifically, they need to issue an update to get everybody to have that same information at the same time. Those should be good. Those should be things that vendors are looking for. That being said, it becomes hard to track. This is one of the things that we're trying to track too at the same time. So this is fun. So this is a continual effort for us when we're compiling RFP and contract information to gather the most up-to-date information at the same time so we can alert our users.
And for all the folks who are saying, okay, this is great, it can help find the RFP, it can help, just find it is one thing, to research the data, but you also are going to help write it, which is something that is not cheap. Anyone who's ever done it, I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars. It's nothing that you can go to Fiverr for, people. I mean, this is not a Fiverr thing, but can you walk us through how that works? Is it some copy and paste? How does that work?
So this is a natural language process. What we're actually doing is we're taking templates from government agency forms. So again, we're here in Keene County in the city of Seattle. The city of Seattle has its own forms for its specific things. Keene County has their own forms, so the RFP request comes in a very specific format. What we do is we take the format, import it, and then we take user information from previous awards that they've submitted or information that they've supplied to us, and information that actually matches with, again, the information that they have on their qualifications matches a field that's in the requirements. We can just kind of auto-populate. That's not to say that the information that they have in there is the best written. Our first goal is just to get the information as it relates to requirements in the form. There probably will need to be some sort of
it's not going to be
grammar
perfect.
Nazi specialist to come in and do stuff, but
it's not going to be perfect, but
right.
that can save a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of time, I think RFPs are kind of put together like mental health reports.
Yeah.
I've worked in psych hospitals and been a mental health counselor in the past, and that's not my degree.
Right.
That's not what my graduate school is
right.
in. But someone said you can do it, and we'll show you how to write the notes.
Right.
And I won't say who that person is on a podcast
right.
that goes out, but I said, wait, so you mean you guys are really like copying and pasting, and if you've seen one patient, you've seen, a lot of patients
right.
and things, and you see, and doctors do the same thing,
yep.
nurses do the same thing. I've worked in hospitals too, so it's kind of like that.
So this is natural language processing. There's a lot of different ways to describe a specific thing. So if you're, I want to use an example of you're a architect and I don't know anything about the field of architecture, but you have a specific way of saying a certain thing. There might be 10 or 12 different ways to say the same thing. We can identify those particular phrases and implement or input those phrases into a piece of a statement of work that you're in. So there might be an easier way of saying, we build buildings, and we've been doing so for 15 years. I'm making this stuff up. We can shorten the description down to, we make buildings for 15 years. It's, again, natural language processing. We can kind of wordsmith some of that stuff. We can also look at a series of phrases from different folks or different contracts or different agencies, how they're describing something. We can use the accepted phrase to put in there as well. So this is basically what natural language process is doing to allow us to kind of auto-populate stuff. So we're not going to do mass corrections of your RFP, but we can do small corrections as it relates to your qualifications and the requirements.
Okay, which saves, I think,
a lot of time.
A lot of time. I mean, on the deck, it talked about cutting time more than in half.
Yep.
Which is just a big thing. So that in itself is a savings, and hopefully nothing, in the new tax laws coming up that I'm not really happy about, stop that from being like something we can't claim.
Right.
I can see that coming down the line, like, hey, you can't claim this for your business now. Just the way things are just all over.
I can't even comment on tax law, so.
Okay. Yeah.
No comment there.
Okay, got you. You want to keep friends. I got you. I told you I got that black helicopter.
Yeah.
They tell me when I've said too much. But you started this, and data science isn't wasn't your thing.
I'm a finance guy.
You're a finance guy. Talk about that and how you even came to this idea from finance to this.
Well, that's a long story. Okay, so I have another company. It's called Funds Advisor. The idea behind that company was to reduce the cost of financial services so that the common person can use financial services. So most financial services are long-term planning services, And if you want an accountant, that's another thing. If you wanted a real estate advisor, that's another thing. If you want a coach that helps you, budget, that's another thing. Getting loans, these are all separate components. Theoretically, very wealthy people have a team of folks that can actually do that work for them. And if you're thinking of financial help, most people think of financial advisors, but again, ask a financial advisor about accounting, they're gonna say, don't talk to me about that. Or if you ask them about tax law, it's again something outside of their scope. What we were looking to do is to use a bunch of data, and then here's the other fun thing about that. What about A/B analysis? One of the questions that people have is, hey, look, I could go to college, or I could take a job, a raise at this particular job, or I could move across country, or I could do something here. That's an A/B question. It's not even a finance. It's a secondary or derivative finance question. How do you make those decisions? So some of that's math, but the other is kind of knowing the individual. And we can use data science to know the individual and know what their preferences might lead to. So if we use a bunch of data science to figure that out, we can kind of help inform the math portion.
Okay.
So I always knew I needed to create a data science company because I couldn't hold a data science company within an RIA. So I created Curiously.
Okay.
And I also knew that was going to be relatively expensive. So what I wanted to do was create a data science company and have it start spinning out different projects that were paid projects. So once we got to a point where we were ready to kind of buy the data science components for a funds advisor, we just happened to have a company that was ready to do that. So I created a separate company, Curiously, which is the company that we're describing now, and we just looked into what problems that we could solve, and this happened to be the first one that we saw. So yeah.
Man, okay. Oh man, that's awesome.
That's a long story.
Yeah. A question we ask every guest
Sure.
on Diversified Game is, with all this money that's coming across, accolades, people are looking at you like a unicorn. People are saying, wow, how'd you come up with these great ideas? You might be on boats, planes, trains, automobiles, right? Trump style. But what is your community give back in getting all of these things? Like, what is the thing that keeps driving you, to say it's not even about the money, because after a certain while it's not even about the work, but what is the give back with everything you've been able to collect, that you've been able to give?
Oh, this is funny. So most of my work is meant to be as a give back. So there's no planes, trains, and automobiles. I've been, a lot of people think of entrepreneurs as, you think of the Silicon Valley millionaires or billionaires, what have you. Most of entrepreneurs, they struggle on a day-to-day basis. You come in, you put, you grind and put stuff to work. You're doing something because you see there's a problem out there. You see people have pain. So the actual thing is, can you identify a problem? Do you know people that have that problem? And then you talk to people that have that problem, and then see what you can do. So if, again, as I said, there's no huge dollars in my back pocket where I'm doing this because I'm loaded. This is, hey, I see a problem, I want to solve it. So that's kind of where my give back is. My give back is, hey, I know my community is suffering. I know the Black community is suffering because we're kind of underbanked. We're kind of taken advantage of. People don't necessarily know not to accept a credit card at 16% interest. Whether or not they understand what 16% interest is, that's a huge thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
You see businesses out there that are getting kind of, they're spending 36 months trying to win a government contract and not getting a sniff of one, and they're not understanding why. These are problems that are affecting our community. It's not just a Black community. There are lots of people having these problems, and I see them having the problem. I see there's a pain, and I think, is there anything I can do to solve that? So this is my give back.
Yeah, and we know it's not just the Black community when we see that, white guys are at, minority meetings claiming minority status, because it's frustrating to the point where you have a white guy say, hey, I'm Cherokee. Hey, my great-great-grandmother was a slave, and you know, I need some of that because it's hard to do government contracting, but everything in the government is hard. Now I will go like on the Republican side of, you know, things when people, you know, we want small government and we want people's hands off our guns and our Obamacare. Give us the.
There's a lot of I've gone to lots of meetings. First of all, government contracting is mostly white male, older white male thing. So if you were to look at the contractors that exist, and again, government contracts could be healthcare, it could be street sweeper. There's a lot of different things that are government contract. But when you're seeing white guys complaining that there's nepotism within the system, or that some folks have a better chance of winning than others, and then you go to some other meetings and you see people jumping on top of desks saying, hey, there's a problem with the system, then you start asking the question of, well, why is there a problem with the system? A lot of times, or what we have found, it's asymmetric information or uneven information, where a party has more information and can act on it because they have that information than others. In financial sector, it's kind of the same thing. If you know that there's going to be an IPO next week, insider trader, you don't do this. But if you know there's an IPO happening next week because your friend, Justin, is in that company, you might put money in and get a big pop. Again, don't do this. This is SEC will get on you, and I'm not promoting this. But asymmetric information is a real thing, and when you see it, what you'll see is people that are wealthy, and then when you in other communities, people that don't have that asymmetric information, they get hurt. Asymmetric information is you go to a car dealership and your credit score is 720, and they say your credit score sucks. We're going to charge you 18% on this car. I know you want it. So you may know that your credit score is 720, but you may not know that 17% or 16% or 8% interest is highway robbery. So you enter into that deal. These are things that we're trying to stop. These are things that I've tried to stop with both companies. Yeah.
And with starting a new company, and I just learned about this, so it's still kind of bothering me with, there's like a new tax deduction in 2018. It's like the QRB, whatever tax, and it's for people with multiple businesses, whatnot. When you're starting your second business, with your first business, are you still hands-on with it, or do you let a manager then go run with it, or did you sell it? What did you do?
Paused it.
You paused it.
Yeah. Okay. So how I wanted to run my first business required a lot of data. Not Google a lot of data, meaning Google has information on everything, but it required quite a bit of data, quite a bit of different types of, in essence, data scientists, quite a bit of AI. And I knew we weren't ready for that. So basically what I did was I put that business on pause. I'm still paying taxes on it. It's an RIA firm. But I just stopped doing work on that to focus on this, as it's, there's a bigger play here first. So our goal is to get up to a point where this is up and running, pull some equity out of the business or pull some dollars out of the business, and then reapply that to a funds advisor with the team that we built.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we're doing this. From a tax perspective, man, again, don't ask me about taxes.
No. Sometimes I think when you have multiple things going on, that's when we should go on Shark Tank with that business and say, hey, I want whatever. I want $2 million for 99.9% of this, and just give me a royalty, Mr. Wonderful, and you can have this.
What's fun, so I don't know if, your audience would be interested in this, is the whole process of raising money. It's humbling. You got to ask. Most of the community that you're asking for money doesn't look like you. And for the women out there, they're mostly men, again, white men in the industry. It's challenging. It's fun. It's not insurmountable. You have to have a problem that you believe in. You have to vet the problem But it's not, and you have to be open to listening to inputs from whatever those Shark Tank folks are saying. But it's doable. That's a message that I want to get across. If you got a great idea, if you have traction, if you have people using your product or service, and if it's a big enough problem that you're trying to solve, you'll get there. Just keep at it.
Man, well, I appreciate you giving us the game. I want to say on the marketing tip, because we like to get the game and we like to give it. I think influencers could really push this because we've seen, like when we've had people on certain shows talk about government contracting, people's ears perk up because they might have heard something about it but didn't know exactly how to get into it,
right.
But also have heard the negative sides. And when you hear somebody win, people of course run to that person, right. But we've also seen, such a... People don't always do what they say they're going to do, and sometimes software doesn't do what it says it's going to do. And I do want to wrap it up, but I wanted to ask this question that's coming to me: are you guys a company that's taking data? Is it is the data also, because data's money?
Yep.
And everyone says they don't sell their data,
mm-hmm.
but you don't have to sell your data,
mm-hmm.
whatever that word means, right? Because
you
can get into some legal things and say, well, we didn't sell it, we gave it away, and then it just happened on this end from Malta, this,
and circle back,
thing circled back. But do you look at your company more of more data we collect on these businesses? I mean, the more valuable even for the government we are. Do you see it like that? Because sometimes companies, Facebook is a data company. I mean,
we are a data science company. What we do is we mine data and turn it into value. One of the things that we're looking to do is, among other things, is collect the information, the free information that the government collects that they theoretically can't charge you for. That's one set of information. If you have ever submitted a government contract, you have submitted your company's information. But again, your company information kind of exists out there. Mm-hmm. What we're trying to do is get more refined company or user information and use that information to help them win contracts.
Yeah.
Yes, we are using your data. And as our goal for the data that we are collecting is to allow our users to better understand the environment that they're working in.
Yeah.
So again, we are. I want to say we're data for good, in the sense that we want to help you understand how to win, and understand, your competitive environment. Understand the nature of whether or not you have a chance of winning a contract. If I were to use an analogy, I like to use a basketball analogy. I think I mentioned this the last time we talked. If you were entering a basketball tournament, and that was your only source of winnings, or your only source of earnings, where the tournament win is the money that you're going to use to spend on groceries for the next week, it would behoove you to know a couple of things. One is how many people are in a tournament. So if the first 3 people get prizes, or only the top person gets a prize, and you're entering a tournament that has 4 people, better odds than if you're entering a tournament that has 44 people. Second, you kind of want to know who your competition is. If you're entering a tournament that has 44 people or 4 people, if one's LeBron James and one's Michael Jordan in their prime, probably shouldn't enter that tournament. You're not going to win.
If it's Shaq.
If it's Shaq.
If it's Shaq, go for it.
Well, if it's Shaq's right now, and if you're doing a one-on-one or whatever the case is, maybe.
Yeah. Free throws only.
Yeah, exactly. The third thing that you kind of want to know is the rules of engagement. And so let's say, again, there's 4 people. One's you, one's me, and one's, let's say, Shaq. Doesn't make a difference. And we're playing a game up to 11. One-on-one, and Shaq starts at 7 and you start at 0, probably not going to win that one either.
No.
So these are things that contractors have to deal with. People that are winning or applying for government contracts have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people start the process earlier in the RFP stage or RFQ or what have you. And that's the final thing I was talking about. So if you start pursuing government contracts at the time that you see an RFP, that might be too late.
Yeah.
So,
and we talked about the key. I had told you about the source of SOT,
right?
And if there was a way, that's the thing that I've said. Even people who've won, they did not know when we were at a meeting what that was, and everyone was just like, source of SOT. Like that's what we really want, because that's the easiest way of getting a contract. Not the easiest thing to do, but you have to be tied in, and they have to then use your platform because that's what it's affordable.
Right.
It's something new, fresh, and let's say you have all the best of not luck but blessings.
Right.
We know that someone's going to come try to buy you out, and then
that's
it is
expectation.
Then life. You don't even start flying anymore. You start teleporting everywhere. So
at some point in time, that's the next thing that we're working on, teleportation.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that.
I want to get stock in that and holograms and all that.
As soon as I can figure that out,
Yeah.
life will be great.
No, but Johnny, I thank you for taking the time. Keep us tuned in. What's going on?
Absolutely.
I want to talk more and more again and again. You guys know I don't stop. So I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.